Welcome to Dashboard Jesus, the podcast where faith meets the fast lane. Whether you're cruising through calm or navigating life's hairpin turns, we're here to help keep your eyes on the road and your heart grounded in God's Word. So buckle up. It's time to ride with a biblical perspective on the journey of life. Here's your host, Peter Heck.
I used to own a t-shirt. I don't think I still have it. I certainly don't think I would fit into it anymore. I'm sure it's grungy, and because it was probably around the time that I started my radio show back in 2004, 2005, somewhere in that time. I owned a t-shirt, and I remember wearing it on airplanes when I would go and people would comment on it and things like that. I think it was a friend, maybe it was my parents, somebody got it for me. And the t-shirt simply read, like it was one of those that has a word in one color, like in red, and then the definition of it next to it. Like I got Jenny one, this isn't the shirt that I had, but I got Jenny one for Christmas a few years ago that it was corner. It said the word corner. And then the definition was place where you never put baby or something like that. And if you're a Dirty Dancing fan, if you ever watched that movie, nobody puts baby in the corner. That's like a line from the movie. I don't know that I've ever seen Dirty Dancing all the way through, but Jenny used to love it as a kid and all that. So I got her that shirt. She loved the shirt. Of course, I'm not really good at picking sizes or styles of shirt, and so she doesn't really wear it. But still, she loved the shirt. It's that kind of a shirt that I had. And here's what the shirt said. It was the word bigot, B-I-G-O-T, bigot. And the definition, written right next to it, was a conservative winning an argument with a liberal. And it takes you a second to think what it's actually saying. I think the website that they got it from was rightwingstuff.com. I don't know if that's still a website or not. They may even still sell that shirt. I don't know. But the whole point of what it's actually saying, and you can probably figure this out, is that bigot, maybe it used to have a definition at one point in time, but now the only time you hear it is when a conservative is winning an argument with a liberal, and that's what the liberal then turns around and shouts at the conservative. So then, basically, it fits into the argument that I've said about other things in our culture, like racism and bigotry and all of that stuff, that they're so overused. You apply the racist label to anybody you disagree with on matters of immigration, on matters of affirmative action or DEI or whatever it is. You disagree with somebody, so you just call them a racist. What you actually do then is degrade the weight. You diminish the weight of the sin of actual racism. You get what I'm saying? You hurt the credibility of the label itself. The label becomes meaningless because if everybody is a racist, well, then nobody is a racist. If everybody's a bigot, then nobody's a bigot. And I think that is and this may be just my own personal bias. It may very well be my own personal bias. But I do think that this is a larger problem going left to right in our culture than it is right to left. I'm not saying that the right isn't guilty of it. I think that you see elements of it when, for instance, the right refers to people on the left as groomers. Now, is grooming a thing? Yeah, it's gross. It's sick. Grooming is a thing. And certain sexual fetishes, grooming is a significant part of that entire, what do we want to call it, sector of human sexuality. Grooming is a real thing. Not everybody on the left who would say they believe in transgender rights or they believe in the LGBTQIAA2+, whatever it is, not everybody that believes in that stuff is, in fact, a groomer. But when you throw out that label and just call them that, well, then it diminishes the weight of the actual accusation because you're applying it to everybody. So I do think it goes both ways. But specifically on this bigotry thing, you can actually do a fairly empirical study if you wanted to, more of a survey. You could go online and type in certain Google searches and word searches and look at where this label has been applied, and you will see that it is often applied to conservatives who disagree with liberal positions on sexuality, on religion, so on and so forth. I'm going to tell you that what just happened on television, on MSNBC to be exact, was one of the most incredible, jaw-dropping statements of outright bigotry that we have seen a major figure in the United States ever make in one sentence. This one sentence crammed more bigotry into it than I would have thought was even humanly possible. And here's the thing, it just got yawns from people. Oh, some people got upset about it and some people raised Cain about it, but the media largely overlooked it. You want to know who it was? First of all, let me welcome you to the Dashboard Jesus podcast. DashboardJesus.net is the website. Would love it if you would get over there and check it out. And just so you are aware, we have a new book. It's a little devotional book on forgiveness. I got more details on that coming up at a later time. But if you're on our mailing list, either a free subscriber or a paid subscriber, you've gotten your deals sent to you. That's why you all should be subscribers. You can just go to peterheck.com or dashboardjesus.net, either one of those, and you can get signed up, and you can get a deal on this book. Nonetheless, it's a little booklet. It's a devotional booklet, 5 major sections on the tough parts about forgiveness. How do I forgive when the person doesn't say sorry? How do I forgive when it's a major emotional hurt? Like it really stings, and I don't know how I'm ever going to forget it. How do I actually go about forgiving in those instances? So it's hopefully going to be beneficial to those of you who are Christians who are wanting to forgive because Christ forgave you. You saw what Erica Kirk did, and you say, I want to do that stuff. I want to be able to do that stuff. I don't know how she has the strength to do that stuff. That's what this little devotional book is all about. Anyway, so you can check it out if you go to dashboardjesus.net. Get signed up for our mailing list. All right, so that was a distracting little commercial that I just threw in there just for fun. So if there is one person who has always demonstrated what I would call a penchant for sneering at people that she doesn't like, it would be our former First Lady, former presidential candidate, former senator from New York, Hillary Clinton. And yet, what she did on MSNBC in a recent interview managed to plumb depths never before seen by man. Even by Clinton standards, it was amazing. And by the way, this isn't a political conversation. This has everything to do with religious bigotry. In just one sentence, and you're going to hear it, Hillary, who is a major party's candidate for president of the United States, managed to pack in more prejudice and more stereotyping and more outright bigotry than most public figures dare to express in a lifetime. Now, if you were guessing, if we were just putting this together based on where our culture is right now, the left's favorite boogeyman, the progressive movement's favorite boogeyman right now, would be conservative, white, Christian men. The woman who desperately wanted to be president and supposedly be president for and president of a country full of conservative white Christian men, she goes out and delivers a line saying conservative white Christian men standing in the way of progress in the country. I just want to roll this clip for you. And I want you to notice how when you hear it on the surface, just because we've been conditioned this way, it almost sounds benign. It almost sounds like, well, it's not a huge deal. She's not saying something outrageous, something offensive. The reason that we think that is twofold. Number one, we live in such outrageous times now where people attempt to say and try to say, because it's going to benefit them somehow, going viral or whatever it may be online, or they're appealing to a particular base that they need in their district to get elected or to raise money. I don't know what it is, but people try to be offensive, and people defend others because they're of their political tribe who say insane things, like that Jay Jones guy, candidate for Attorney General in Virginia, who's texting people that he wanted to see the former Speaker of the House and his family die, like wanted to see them killed. And this is in a text message. And people are out there saying, well, obviously what he said is wrong, but I know the family. He's a good guy. No, good guys don't say things like that. And it's just stunning. But it's because of things like that we tend to overlook the outrage in a statement like what Hillary Clinton just made. And here's the second reason why. We've just been conditioned to accept this as completely acceptable to say, even though if you put any other category of person that wasn't conservative white Christian men, if you put any other individual with any other characteristics in the place of them in this sentence or in this idea, people would be losing their cool. Yeah, that's not the word you thought I was going to say. They would be losing all control of their bodily functions. Here's Hillary Clinton talking on the Morning Joe program. Roll this.
The idea that you could turn the clock back and try to recreate a world that never was, dominated by, let's say it, white men of a certain persuasion, a certain religion, a certain point of view, a certain ideology, it's just doing such damage to what we should be aiming for.
One word for that. And you got to call this what it is. It is bigotry. That's the one word. If you want two words, call it outright bigotry. And I understand, again, the reason that I had that shirt at one point in time, when I was much more politically oriented and engaged than maybe what I am right now, although this sounds like it's very political, even though, again, it's not. We're talking about religious bigotry here in the country that we've just come to overlook because it's the right category of people that we permit the bigotry towards. But it's become routine for progressives in the country and those on the left side of the political aisle to pretend that they own a monopoly over this accusation. But by any reasonable definition of the term bigotry, that is exactly what Hillary Clinton was trafficking in this statement. And there is nothing even remotely subtle about it. Why do I say that? Clinton's words reveal at least 4 distinct ways that cultural elites, and she is in that group, have convinced themselves that vilifying Christians, particularly Christians who are white and male, is completely acceptable. I will give you those 4 specific, distinct ways that this statement is insanely bigoted when we come back right after this.
Imagine a new kind of investing, a potentially life-changing way to invest that honors biblical principles, the kind of principles that you and I grew up with. Since 1994, Timothy Plan has made biblically responsible investing possible, offering mutual funds and ETFs that are filtered for biblical principles. Don't compromise your values. Invest with Timothy Plan. Ask your financial advisor or call Timothy Plan at 1-800-TIM-PLAN. Again, that's 1-800-846-7526 and discover what it means to be a biblically responsible investor. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal. Before investing, carefully consider a fund's investment objective, risks, charges, and expenses contained in the prospectus available at timothyplan.com. Read carefully before investing. Mutual funds distributed by Timothy Partners Ltd. and ETFs distributed by Foreside Fund Services LLC. As a paid testimonial, there is no guarantee of future performance and each experience will differ.
Back back here on the Dashboard Jesus podcast. Make sure you're checking our website, dashboardjesus.net. Also, when you're there, click on the Join Us and you can get signed up for our mailing list. You can sign up for our free subscription if you're interested, or a paid subscription, and keep the ministry afloat and keep it going and keep it thriving. And I'm telling you right now that it's a great time to do it, because if you get signed up, you can get in on the special that exists for our followers, our subscribers, one group or the other, of the new devotional book I've got out called Wounded Grace, and it's all about the power of forgiveness and how we can become more like Christ in that way. So check that out. So before the break, we listened to this audio of Hillary Clinton, who is again still a significant figure and significant leader of at least, roughly half of the population of the United States. And she went on Morning Joe, a nationally televised program, cable network, MSNBC. She goes on there and drops a line that is so outrageously bigoted, it is stunning that everybody just kind of yawns at it. Let me play this one more time for you. Here it is.
The idea that you could turn the clock back and try to recreate a world that never was, dominated by, let's say it, white men of a certain persuasion, a certain religion, a certain point of view, a certain ideology, is just doing such damage to what we should be aiming for.
Okay, now that I've thought this through, and I'm going to lay this out for you, I'm just sitting here flabbergasted that somebody would ever think it was okay to say what she just said. Let's talk about the 4 pieces of bigotry that are right there. First of all, the bigotry of reduction. Clinton is not arguing here a position. And we can put anybody else in, people that you know, and God forbid us, where we don't argue with a position, but instead simply caricature a people. White men of a certain persuasion, a certain religion, a certain point of view. Okay, they're lumped together as a monolith. You've got white men of a certain persuasion, certain religion, certain point of view. She's talking about conservative, Christian, white men. And she's not fooling anybody about that. She doesn't want to fool anybody. And she's saying they're all the same. I know a lot of conservative Christian white men, and we have differing views on different things. But they were branded the, quote, problem with America. That's not honest debate, friends. That's stereotyping in every sense of the word. We're conditioned not to notice it because of the target of her contempt, because it is the majority. And in most people's eyes, they have the majority of the power, white conservative Christian men. And when you say, hey, you're being bigoted towards white conservative Christian men, they say, oh, Crimea River. Okay, and then it becomes excused because it's the majority? No, it's still bigotry. Simply imagine swapping out that group for black women. If somebody got on television and said that black women are the problem with America, people would be calling for their head, or Muslims, or immigrants. Social media would explode, and there would be a cultural meltdown of epic proportions. And you say, well, essentially, that's what Donald Trump and the MAGA world's doing with immigrants in the country. First of all, they would take issue with that, but they would say it's illegal immigrants, criminal illegal immigrants to be precise. But regardless, the left is going nuts about that and making huge political hay about it because it's outrageous that a person would declare this group of people of a certain persuasion, a certain religion, a certain point of view, that they're the problem with America. But because she attacked conservative Christian white men, it's silence. That isn't analysis, that's prejudice. Here's the second bigotry, is the bigotry of exclusion. She's implying that Christian men, white ones, don't have a legitimate or meaningful role in America's future. If they hold to biblical convictions, especially if they're white, then they're cast as obstacles rather than fellow citizens. That's not just insulting. It is a flagrant attempt to push an entire group out of the American story. Faithful Christians are not trying to, as Hillary put it, turn the clock back. What are faithful Christians in the culture trying to do? They're trying to order life around what God says is good and true and life-giving. If you call that damage, it's backwards, it's foolish. But if we simply use the left's parlance and terminology, it is nothing short of discriminatory. A group of people say God says these things are good and true and life-giving, and it's what's going to cause our culture to flourish or to sustain itself. To say, well, you're trying to turn back the clock. You're doing damage. No, that's discriminatory is what it is. It's excluding people from having their voice in the future of our culture. Who is Hillary to be able to do that? Here's the third one. It's the bigotry of hypocrisy. This is what always stands out about the rhetoric of our political elite. They will preach tolerance, diversity, inclusion, but it is almost always the case. All you have to do is listen to them speak to realize that those values of tolerance and diversity and inclusion, they don't extend to those whose diversity includes biblical Christianity. That's what I mean when I say the hypocrisy of elite bigotry. It's inclusion for everyone except white male Christians, which means it isn't really inclusion at all. It's equality for everybody except people who will not bow to the cultural gods of the age, which means it's not really equality. It's favoritism. It should not take a genius, and yet we all overlook this, again, because we've been conditioned to. It shouldn't take a genius to recognize that when your claim of diversity comes with a list of disqualified groups, that isn't diversity. It's the very definition of ideological conformity. Everybody has to conform to what I think is right. Otherwise, we're not interested in their thoughts or opinions. That's not diversity or valuing it. And finally, you've got the bigotry here of dehumanization. And to me, it's the most troubling aspect of all of this. Clinton isn't just disagreeing with white conservative Christian men as though they all think the same way and act the same way. She's treating them as a monolith and then casting them as a destructive force. White conservative Christian men, she said, are doing, quote, such damage to the country. Okay, notice that is not a policy critique. That is a moral condemnation. And notice the basis of that moral condemnation is solely skin color, sex, and beliefs. Do you know what history tells us where that kind of bigotry based on skin color and gender and beliefs, where that leads? Once you label a group as villains, hostility towards that group becomes acceptable. I will point out that Hillary made these comments, 2 weeks? 2 weeks after Charlie Kirk got shot in the neck? As one of these people that would fit in this group that she's saying is doing so much damage to the country? Dehumanization always precedes mistreatment. You have to dehumanize a group so people feel that it's just to mistreat them. And whether the elites like Hillary want to admit it or not, and even whether they intend for it to or not, that rhetoric paves the way for that very kind of hostility. And what is stunning to me about the whole thing is that this can be said, something this reckless and this bigoted can be said without much of any pushback except from conservative white Christian men who are saying, hey, wait a minute. Is anybody hearing what she's saying right now? I'm telling you, the fact that there wasn't outrage about this across all quarters, that tells you everything you need to know about the times that we live in. Prejudice is dressed up as sophistication as long as it's directed towards the right group. The truth is, friends, that the future of America doesn't rest in the hands of any elite that sneers on television towards others. The future of America rests in the hands of men and women who love Jesus Christ, who stand on biblical truth, who raise strong families, who build flourishing communities. That isn't damage. I mean, Hillary may call it damage, but God calls that faithfulness. And I know you know this, but His is the only verdict that matters. Your thoughts welcome. PeterHeck.com. That's Peter@PeterHeck.com. You can also get to dashboardjesus.net. Join us, get on our mailing list, and grab a copy of Wounded Grace. It's now available for a discounted price for our subscribers. Would love for you to grab a copy if you're interested at all. Also would love to hear from you if you are a paid subscriber. I don't know if the name Mark Driscoll means anything to you. He was a megachurch minister who then kind of fell from grace because of some abusive behavior at his church and the whole Rise and Fall of Mars Hill podcast a lot of people listen to. Okay, all of that aside, I never listened to the podcast. I don't really know what all happened with Mark Driscoll, but I know the basics. But Mark Driscoll just said something that every biblical Christian should be saying, I'm sorry, what? No, that is not the case. I'm going to get into that and maybe get some pushback from some of you. I hope not, but maybe. I want to get into that, what it was that this guy who is a Christian and who speaks very boldly and passionately about many of the things that I would believe in. We obviously would have some disagreements. But this guy is completely off in this assessment. And it's one that garnered a lot of amens, and that's concerning to me. So that's what we get into for paid subscribers, what Mark Driscoll said that is just way off base, and every Christian should be out front saying so. That's for paid subscribers. The rest of you, well, all of you, got a commentary coming to your inbox tomorrow from the dashboard. I hope you'll check it out with also some links to, again, a copy of Wounded Grace. All right, that's it. That's all the time we got. I'll see you next week for more of the Dashboard Jesus podcast. Adios.
Thanks for tuning into the Dashboard Jesus podcast. Honestly, forget just the dashboard. This old car wouldn't be operating if it wasn't for all of these good people and groups that I know personally that have helped sponsor us and keep us going. Friends like Jonathan at Hartman Family Farms, or at my bank, First Farmers Bank and Trust, my lawn care team at Truland Equipment, my insurance company, Norris Insurance, the place where I buy and lease all of my vehicles, McGonigal GM Buick, also J. Watson Creations, the jeweler I use for all the custom pieces that I buy for people that I care about, Stevens Machine, my mechanic at Terrell's Auto Service, my longtime realtor, the Wyman Group, and those fighting for family values in the public square like the Indiana Family Institute and Indiana Right to Life. Thanks to all of those great sponsors.